Bandai has got themselves one hell of a series. Although slowly and with each iteration, these games have slowly grown themselves to popularity. But what exactly makes them popular? Many would think it is the unforgiving gameplay and brooding difficulty. How each mistake has a hefty cost, making you have to learn how each enemy moves and attacks. Then for you to develop a strategy to counter them. Or is it the level design, as not only do the areas bridge together with ingenious shortcut systems, the areas also tell a story with selective design choices. What about the cryptic gameplay, the glorious soundtrack? There's a lot of things. Or maybe it's just because it's fun. I think it's because it's fun. In this video series, I will go on each of the Soulsborne games. Yes! I did say Soulsborne! I know a significant portion of people really do not want to include Bloodborne, but if we're going to include Demon Souls, I'm including Bloodborne. Why the fuck don't we include Kingsfield while we're at it? What's that? Kingsfield's not directed by Miyazaki, neither with Dark Souls 2, but we can include that? Go fuck yourself. I'm including Bloodborne because I want to piss you off. What? You don't want to be pissed off? Why the fuck are you playing Dark Souls? Fucking hypocrite! So I decided to make an entire small anthology breaking down the entire series game by game. And we're gonna start with the game that sort of started it all. Demon Souls. Demon Souls is the sort of game for old fags and PS3 loyalists. It was the final Souls-esque game I have played in the series. I had exclusively bought a PS3 for the purpose of playing Demon Souls and rebuying Dark Souls. Was it worth it? For the purpose of completing my Souls collection, I would say so. The graphics are impressive for the time. Although a challenge, due to how our modern games have a faster pace, modern players could find the slower combat a bit of a breeze, even if they have little experience in Souls games. Not saying you'll survive Vanguard in your first try, but maybe on your second try. Quite an impressive game, no? Well, I think it's very impressive given the backstory of the production. The ironic thing about Demon Souls is that it was destined to die. Demon Souls was originally created to be a sequel to, what else? Kingsfield. But it ended up being a colossal production failure. So they pulled a freaking Armored Core dev. I have a question for that thought process before we get started. The dev who specializes in mecha games, and you have him make a fantasy RPG, I would be questioning it a little bit more if it didn't work. Yeah, Miyazaki. He made mecha games before that. And he managed to revive this half-aborted game from the grave, which would kind of explain a little bit of the lack of polish in this game, so that's why I sometimes forgive it. It's fairly clear that the game has taken inspirations from Berserk, Dragon Quest, Kingsfield, and other games and mangas. The game that came out and had some really good success in the West, especially considering this game is noted for being able to make a profit without having any advertisements. Like, there was no gameplay trailer for the West, it just existed, people bought it, and it made a significant profit. No TV commercials, no billboard ads, just appeared in your gaming stores. Kind of impressive how they made it in capitalist America. Let's get the biggest thing out of the way when it comes to a game. The gameplay. Demon Souls was one of the first games that does gameplay in this style of combat, with weapon types, movesets, combos, stamina management, and similar RPG elements in this style. I have noticed that these gameplay elements correlate to a fighting game, as you have light attacks, heavy attacks, counters, and need to predict the enemy's pattern. The level up system is one of my favorites of the series because of how non-committed you can be. Even though there's no respec, or rather a clean respec option, you can just put points in whatever really. Most people like to put it in endurance for fast rolls, which I'll get into in a bit. But you can just level your strength, dex, stats to the minimum to wield a certain weapon and rely on the upgrades. Especially how magic is freaking powerful in this game. You don't have to commit much in spells in this game, just putting a little in the stats is good enough. I mean, look at it, I only have the base magic stats and I'm killing this dude in like more hits. I'm killing this dude in so many hits. I'm serious, how the fuck am I allowed to have this? That being said, I'm going to contradict myself for a second. I will say that in certain builds, commitment is pretty vital. For example, how scaling works. As you can tell with many of the weapons, the scaling are usually very one-sided, as it's very rare to have a normal weapon that scales equally with both strength and dexterity. And it's mostly just, you either focus on strength or you focus on dexterity. Not to mention, most of the weapons here have a naturally low scaling rate, usually going from D's to E's until you upgrade it up to a C, which is not a very significant C, it's just a regular dumb C. The weapons in Demon's Souls don't have that much variety, honestly. All the straight swords act the exact same way in movements and functionality, but only have a slight alteration in properties, such as this one scales better with strength, this one scales better with dex, this one does slashing damage, this one does thrusting damage. And not to mention, Demon's Souls has a lot of weapon redundancy. Like, the longsword is just a better version of the short sword, and the knight's sword is just a better version of the longsword. So it's like, why commit to a longsword when you just wait for a knight's sword? Now, I also enjoy how the damage types actually matter. You see these little thingies? They're damage types. Quite cryptic, right? But in any case, depending on what type it is, it's either going to be a regular, slash, thrust, or strike. And these damages actually matter. The reptile enemies take extra damage to thrust attacks, so having a weapon with thrust attacks does bonus damage. Already skeletons they don't look like fucking, what kind of a... These bone people are weak to smashing and strike damage. So having strike damage is pretty useful, like a mace. Meaning that this game incentivizes you for having multiple weapons. It also incentivizes you to study enemy weaknesses and figure out what's going to be effective. Magic, fire, strike, whatever. Now, the concept of the quit burden and iron burden are also an interesting thing in Demon's Souls. Now, iron burden is not really hard to explain if you played other games. Just think, okay, you played Elder Scrolls games, you remember carry weight, it's that. Equip burden is the only thing that is a little bit different. Pretty easy to know, it's the weight that only gets added when you equip them. And that also includes your offhand equipment. And it depending on the percentage of your equip burden, depends on what kind of a roll. In Demon's Souls, having less than 50% of your equipment gives you a fast roll, while having more gives you a fat roll. Now, this is where I'm gonna have to say something. A lot of players usually say go fast roll or go home. I will disagree. Fat roll is somewhat viable, but fast roll is just easy. A fat roll just has a smaller dodge time. You can still dodge with a fat roll, you just gotta really time it. And in many cases, if your armor has a high enough defense rating, your fat roll can be worth it. And you also need to get used to slow stamina recovery. It's just to add the difficulty, not really anything bad. Especially me, since throughout my playthrough I'm going as the person that is on the box build, which in each game I'm playing the person that is on the box. Except Dark Souls 3 for spoiler reasons, so I'm just going as the generic knight guy. But in any case, there's this always design concept I've always paid attention to the Souls series, that their character classes sort of sets up the expectations of the player. For example, half the classes in Demon's Souls start out fat rolling. So that means that obviously the game is okay with you fat rolling, and you can make it throughout the game fat rolling because the game is designed that way. I will take note of that observation in later games because it fits along trend. Magic is a beast in this game. It is the strongest in this game. I've only used it a little, and Jesus Christ, this thing is powerful. But given on to that, one of Demon's Souls' biggest aspects is being both broken and experimental. However, it's very unique. It breaks things in a unique way, how we can say it. I guess if you want to give Demon's Souls a description without using the word broken, call it experimental. But kid, most of these weapons are pretty freaking unique for the type of game it is. For example, There's a spell that makes you send a cooperative player back to their world with rewards, or even send invading players back to their worlds. There's a lot of trolling weapons too. For example, a shitty knife that does shitty damage but absorbs souls, and a spear that does shitty damage but breaks equipment, and a giant knife that will win you the game. I wish I was joking. Okay, so here's the big deal of Demon Souls that doesn't really catch my eye. Falling. Like, just falling. It is so slippery, icy, and slow. I don't know how you can make a concept such as gravity icy and slow. The problem with that is when you jump off, you have absolutely no idea if you're going to land. Am I gonna land? Am I gonna land and not die? I don't know. I don't care. I'm not sure. The final thing I want to talk about is the upgrade mechanics. It's sloppy. Very sloppy. But intuitive. There are paths that unlock at a certain level of your weapons. For example, once a normal weapon is at +4, you can go to the quality path. Which I suggest you don't. It's not really that worth it. Quality weapons are kind of shit. But I do like how there are different types of materials to upgrade certain weapons and certain paths. But I do not like how Meltstone is used to degrade weapons to its base unupgraded form. There's not much for me to say in terms of upgrading. It's a sloppy blowjob. There we go, it's a sloppy blowjob. Not clean, but still enjoyable. The game overall and the gameplay department is not something to write home with. Let's just say future teams did it better, but we can give it the benefit of the doubt. It's an old game, and it did in its first thing, and not many games did it the exact same way it did it, but it's good! The story of Demon Souls, and I might get yelled for this, is better than the story of Dark Souls. Hold on, let me explain. Dark Souls' story is a story better shown than told. Many of the stories of Dark Souls would sound really boring if you told a guy about it. Yeah, there was this dad who left the country and wanted to go to adventure, and then he adventured too much and his daughter killed him. Yeah, that doesn't sound very entertaining now, does it? But it's better shown. However, Demon Souls tells its story, but it tells a fairly good one. It's a story about Boletaria when the kingdom has discovered the magic of the soul arts, but them tampering with things they do not know ends up creating demons who consume the souls of humans for the old one. Now, the MC is the Slayer of Demons, the arbitrary title RPG characters have to be identified as. For example, the Lone Wanderer, the Dova King, the Faggot. The Slayer has to, well, what else? Kill demons. Powerful demons that reside over the 5 areas of Boletaria. There were originally 6, but like I said, this game was half aborted, so that area doesn't exist. Which is why I really want a remake of Demon Souls so they can recreate that area, but they will never do it because so many fucking... The individual storylines of each area is pretty interesting on their own. The individual stories of the levels are told from visual cues scattered about the areas. For example, in Boletarian Palace, the level has a wide assortment of furnishings, almost implying that these places had once housed people like you and me, before the place had gone to shit. As you get further into the area, the furnishings get a little bit more noticeably refined, to imply we are climbing up to the more higher class parts, even though it is corrupt by demons and soul-starved soldiers. Or we can even look at the Valley of Defilement, which is a place in which the atmosphere is riddled with filth. And when I mean atmosphere, I mean the actual air around your character. And it only gets more visceral until you get to a place that has a pond of blood infested with aborted children. What the living, dying, fuck am I looking at? Not all characters are super developed. Some characters are as simple as, this is a bad guy, kill him. This is a tricky guy, don't kill him, but try not to fall for his... God damn it, what did I say? But there are characters with some complexity, such as characters who want to be brave, but unlike us, will die permanently, and has to be careful about his life. Surprisingly, my 2 favorite characters are bosses. One is Maiden Estraya. She's the final boss of the Valley of Defilement. Well, not exactly her. she is defended by her royal knight, Garl Vinland. What is so powerful about this boss is that she's a regular human. She's a priestess who had traveled to the Valley of Defilement via sympathy. She saw all the abuse and neglect that was given to the people of the valley, and which caused her to disown her own god for the suffering that has been caused to these people, and had made a deal with a demon for a good cause. She had the people offer her souls in exchange, and in exchange she would ease the pain of the inhabitants. What you're doing is for a pretty good cause. I mean, people are fucking dying everywhere. But everyone has their good reasons for what they're doing. And when good reasons conflict each other, it causes a moral dilemma. And I think this boss is the best way to show a moral dilemma.
Destroyer, I have failed you.
My other favorite character, which... oh, God, this is going to be a controversial one. The final boss of the game. I wish. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Isn't he the worst boss ever? Well, he is. But I guess that's the reason. But as a character and a listen to the player, I think he's more than a blob of blackberry jelly. King Allant was once the king of Boletaria, until he discovered soul arts and introduced it to the people of Boletaria, making them all happy. But later, he ended up feeling like this wasn't it. So he decided to create world peace by having demons destroy the world. And he did so by awakening the ancient being known as the Old One. Despite the power he had sacrificed everything for, he had only become weak and pitiful. Yeah, you sacrificed a good boss for a message, but I always kind of like the lesson that the search for power under evil means will cause you to become a weak person. Also, I always think about it. He was once a beloved ruler, a really good one. He was probably even a good father. I mean, why else would his son believe that he could convince his own father to be on the good side if his father had been evil the whole time? He had to be good at one point for his son to trust his moral judgment. I kind of wonder how a person who lived a really good life could be held responsible for the extinction of the human race. Not to mention, I really like this quote.
Surely you have seen for yourself the pain and suffering that fills this world, that fight poison with poison.
Kind of an ironic statement that he's trying to kill everybody with demons, even though the demons are killing him. But one character I kind of like is the Maiden in Black. At first, I thought, oh, another level up, lady. But then I began to kind of like her. Despite her just looking like a blind woman, she has a very dark past that influenced her current mood, as her fate is nothing more than controlled by destiny and the goals of others who value their own objective over her life. But nevertheless, she uses her power to help you fulfill your objective and save the world. So, she's pretty good. Now, the level design is the highlight of this game. I gotta love how much detail they put in each place, and the enemy places they have in each place. To put it short, the levels feel organic. I would describe the overall design of this place as organic. The environment has some form of realism or individual placements to have it feel natural to walk through. Also, despite the areas themselves don't play any music, the areas do have a certain atmosphere to it. The Tower of Latria is always uncomfortable to play in, making me not want to play that area, but hey, that's just it. But the Shrine of Storms always has this certain majesty to it that I just kind of like. Also, what I like about it is you can pick and choose your areas. Tunnel Fang too hard for you? Try the other 4 areas. Also, how each area has their own sort of grinding gimmick to it. The enemies in each area drop a specific item or specific tools depending on the area. For example, Boletarian Palace enemies commonly drop healing grass, making it a good place to grind for healing items. Tunnel Fang enemies commonly drop upgrade materials, and enemies in the Shrine of Storms just get you a lot of souls, etc. Now, the bosses in this game have been done better in future installments, but I feel like the bosses here have a specific charm to it. As if we really haven't seen a lot of bosses in this type in many of them. I might be wrong. There might be a lot of bosses that have been overdone in this sense, but hey, give me a call. I'll try play it. I think its execution and the accompanying soundtracks to it just kind of makes the boss fights. For example, the Armored Spider's theme gives off a creepy and eerie tone to it, as if something is chasing you. Vanguard's theme of terror and shock does kind of match a first player's experience with this boss. The very presentation of most of these bosses have the most charm out of them. Let me list some of my favorite bosses. Penetrator. The Penetrator is a medium-sized enemy who expresses some decent speed and prowess. The epic track playing in the background and his unforgiving attacks that punishes you for your mistakes. Also sexual penetration joke lol. Old King a lot. The opening cutscene is what kind of gets me. The fact that he's been watching you since the beginning, only to finally face you 1v1. Ah, the King of Storms. Such a magnificent beast. This is so much of a spectacle to it. The epic wide open area filled with these flying demons and tombstone. You fight them with the power of the Storm Ruler, which smacks these fools like butter. But you can fight them without using the Storm Ruler pretty easily. That just means you have multiple, pretty equally well ways to fight them. The Storm Ruler is just for melee characters to give it a try. But honestly, I still fucking use it because it's pretty damn awesome. You're sniping a flying manta ray with a sword. And I've already explained my reason why I like Maiden Estrada, and I do acknowledge the final boss of Demon Souls is not that great. But let's not forget, this also has some of the worst bosses. Oh god, fuck you. I used to like this boss. I used to think, wow, he looks cool. Until you stop caring for this lazily made boss fight. This is a shitty puzzle of, can we make it on the other side before one hit kill Kenny gets his wish? He's an unfortunate boss I like to call a crippled Goliath. This made-up term refers to a boss that is, in the lore or story, supposedly highly powerful and canonically would not be killed by normal means, but only killed by powerful means. Basically akin to a god or highly powerful being. In many games, when they have this sort of god, they usually give the player his kryptonite, or they make the character powerful enough to stop him, or they give some sort of means why you would kill a godlike enemy. This trope is very present in video games, but the Souls games does it very bad, I will have to say. And yeah, this is a pretty disappointing boss, especially seeing how he was on the cover of the disc. Alright, in conclusion, Demon Souls was the first of its kind. As far as I know, if you know any Souls games that aren't like that, I don't know, maybe there's an underrated gem called Potato Mania, in which you play as a potato lord and collect potato wings. Where is this joke going? Demon Souls was created by its death, and its creation started a line of games that had spanned for years. Despite how experimental Demon Souls is, it does give off some natural charm. Intriguing story, fantastic atmosphere, and some memorable bosses. I gotta say, pretty glad I got a PS3 for this game exclusively.